So in this video, I want to talk about being dickmatized, dickmatization versus actually being in love. Hey. I'm Aziza Kibibi, and I want to talk to my ladies out there about relationships. Are you in love or are you dickmatized? Being a survivor of years of abuse, child molestation. My father molested me from when I was 8 years old. He started raping me at 10. Over the years, I have had 4 children. As a result of that rape and abuse, I was isolated from the world. Didn't escape him until I was 24. So you can imagine that my experience with the first man that I knew, the first man that I was exposed to in my life, as many women are, my father, for him to violate my trust and essentially do the exact opposite of what he was actually put in charge by God to do, which was to protect me. You can imagine how that has affected my view on relationships and interacting with men. Now, after I escaped my dad, I had boyfriends. I learned to enjoy sex. I got married. I had a child. I got divorced. I've had other relationships since then. But one thing that I have noticed, I fall in love hard. And when I fall in love, like it's a whole entire production. Of course, we know loving someone does take trust. I have worked through a lot of my issues dealing with trusting men as far as being safe or feeling safe around men. For all of those who have sex before marriage, which I believe is a lot more than religious cultures would like you to believe, and that's a whole other video to talk about, piety and virginism, or I don't even know if that's a word, but a woman's body count, etc. Dickmatization, in my definition, is when the sex is so good that you are hypnotized by it, that your line of sight as far as who the person that is on the other end of the penis really is, if they really love you or care about you, how you truly feel about them. Being dickmatized is this idea that this person has made your body feel so good and the sex is so good that you kind of ignore other things, or you create this fantasy of a person because the sex is so good. You tend to like things about them that maybe you normally wouldn't like, or don't even know if you do like, because the sex is so good. Also, there's a biological side to it if you didn't know. A woman absorbs the certain hormones and compounds in a man's sweat during lovemaking, and we get high off of that. Plus, there are things like oxytocin that is stimulated if you have a good and enjoyable sexual encounter with someone and they make you have an orgasm. Endorphins, oxytocin, all of these different hormones are released into your system that then makes your brain crave it, and it actually associates these good feelings and this high of different hormones to the person that was a causative in the releasing of those hormones. So that's another form of dickmatization. How do you tell the difference between being in love and being dickmatized? My ways are: being dickmatized, you tend to only think about the person sexually. Sure, their smile could be brilliant, but when you see that brilliant smile, do you think about having sex? Does that smile turn you on? Or does that smile actually bring you joy and make you feel good about yourself and about that person? Other little things that they could do, whether it be their laugh. Some people find people's laughs annoying, but if you are dickmatized, then pretty much all of these little things that they do will put you in mind of your sexual encounter with them. Where if you are in love, you genuinely like those things. You genuinely miss the person. You genuinely can relate to them on different levels. You can't get them out of your head for other reasons other than just the sex. Have I been dickmatized? I think I have. Yes, I have been dickmatized. I entered a relationship with someone where we had sex and it was so good, or they interacted with me in such a way that made me feel so satisfied that I started to ignore some other red flags. Like, this person was very judgmental. And it's funny, they say that men can keep up a front for 6 months before you see the real them. So this gentleman, we was in full-fledged relationship. But then I started noticing that I would say things and he would judge how I would talk. He'd criticize me in certain ways. And right down to the television shows I watched, the music that I listened to, and then thinking back to before we were intimate, I then remembered that he would kind of do that with other people that we knew, other people that we had mutual friendships or relationships with. I started thinking back and was like, this sounds very familiar. But then, of course, at the time before I was involved with him in a romantic way, that didn't matter to me. It was just something that he did. I didn't really pay attention. But then after he was very attentive and started to pursue me, and I made a decision to then enter into a relationship and become intimate with him, the sex was just absolutely amazing. I mean, he made me feel loved, physically loved. He made me feel like every part of my body was just something that he just longed and desired for. And, you know, I like feeling wanted. So it was just awesome. It was just awesome. Like, knock out the park. And yes, I became dickmatized. But then I guess after the dickmatization started wearing off, I started noticing, wait a minute, echoes in my head of these things and these little criticisms and comments and underhanding remarks that I knew that I heard before. And sure enough, it turned out this joker was judgmental, self-absorbed, I mean, everything, conceited, egotistical, obnoxious, and everything he did started to annoy me. So dickmatization wore off. But before that, while it was on, I definitely thought that I was in love. But I could tell you, lesson learned, most of the time that I thought about him, that I wanted him during that whole process, the thoughts were sexual. It was always sexual. It was like, oh, well, you know, I just love his skin. But then it would just remind me of those hot, sweaty moments. Then I'd see him and he was dressed nice, but then I would just remind me of him taking his clothes off. So in my experience, yes, that is the difference. Being in love and being dickmatized. Dickmatize all your thoughts, feelings for the person usually lead to sexual thoughts, memories of your experiences with them. But when you are in love, then you tend to appreciate the person for who they are and what they do. Their laugh makes you feel good. Even when stuff is crap. Like, I've been in love and the person made really corny, bad jokes. but I just thought they were so adorable. And a lot of times when you are in love, well, anytime you're in love, you tend to accept the flaws. Hopefully you don't accept really terrible, horrible flaws, but yeah, you accept the flaws. And I think about how my mom felt about my father. Even though he was abusive, she accepted all that shit. She accepted everything. And that's where I say love is really neutral, or at least romantic love is really neutral, because it could either be used to manipulate and you can just like go off the rails mentally, or you can use it for something very positive and you can care and support and appreciate the person that you're with. Have you ever been dickmatized? Have you? Be honest. Do you think there's a difference between being dickmatized and being in love? How much does sex have to do with actually being in love? Let me know. Look down into the comments. Thank you for listening. Please share your input, whatever you think. Make sure to subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. And also, let me know, what do you think about this line of conversation? I think that it applies not only to survivors of abuse, because sometimes we are definitely challenged with determining, what is a safe relationship and who we can trust. But I think just people in general, it's not easy being involved with a whole other person. They have their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own issues, their own challenges. So, I love talking about relationships. And if you want to see more videos on relationships, please let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm Aziza Kibibi. Be blessed, for you are a blessing.